Welcome back to Master 79. In this lesson we're taking on speaking part 2 and part 3 topic 50. Describe a complaint that you made and you were satisfied with the result. We'll plan it. We'll hear a full Band 9 model answer, and then we'll work through all 5 part 3 questions. 2 things before we start. First, the Band 9 label is our own assessment against the public IELTS band descriptors. It is not a certified examiner score. Second, the candidate you're about to hear is an invented persona called Lynn, and her story is fiction. Copy her technique, please, but never her content. The examiner is marking your language, not your life. Here's how part 2 actually runs. The examiner hands you a card and a pencil. You get 1 minute to prepare, and then you speak for 1 to 2 minutes on your own. The examiner will not interrupt you, and they will stop you at 2 minutes. So your job is to fill the time with organized speech, not to finish early. This is the card printed exactly as it appears in the source. Read it with me. Describe a complaint that you made and you were satisfied with the result. You should say when it happened, who you complained to, what you complained about, and explain why you were satisfied with the result. One quick note on this particular card. The bullets are printed in the order when, who, what. Most published versions of this card use what, who, when instead. We've kept the source order exactly as it was given. It changes nothing about your task. Cover all 3 bullets, and then spend real time on that final line because that is where the band is won. So, the planning minute. The single biggest mistake is trying to write sentences. You cannot write and think at the same time, and you will run out of time. Write triggers instead. 1 line per bullet, 3 or 4 words each, and save your last 10 seconds for the final line because that's the part candidates most often reach with nothing prepared. Here's what Lynn actually wrote in her minute. 5 short lines. Notice there isn't a single full sentence on this page. When March last year before final semester. Who the online retailer's customer service, not the maker. What battery, 12 hours advertised, under 1 hour real. Why satisfied, 48-hour reply, free courier, new upgraded unit, voucher. And at the bottom, the big idea she wants to end on calm, specific in writing, gets results. That grid is enough to talk for 2 minutes. Let's build the answer piece by piece. Piece 1, the opening and the when.
I'd like to talk about a complaint I made about 18 months ago when a laptop I'd bought online turned out to be faulty. It happened in March last year, just before my final university semester started. I'd been saving up for months for that machine, so when the box arrived I was genuinely excited.
Piece 2, what actually went wrong. Listen for the numbers.
Within about a week, though, I noticed the battery was draining from full to flat in under an hour, even with nothing running. For a laptop advertised as having a 12-hour battery life, that was pretty unacceptable.
Piece 3, who she complained to, and crucially, why that person.
I complained to the retailer's customer service department rather than the manufacturer because I'd bought it through their website and my contract was with them. I started on their live chat, which honestly got me nowhere. I was passed between 3 different agents and each one asked me to repeat the whole story. So I changed tack and put everything in writing.
Piece 4, the turning point of the story.
I sent the formal email setting out the fault, attaching the battery diagnostic report, my order number and photographs of the screen, and I referred explicitly to my statutory right to a replacement. So what I was complaining about in the end was two things: the defective battery itself and the fact that their first line support had fobbed me off for a fortnight.
Piece 5. The final line with structured reasons.
I was satisfied with the outcome for 3 reasons. Firstly, they replied within 48 hours of the written complaint and arranged to courier at no cost to me. Secondly, rather than repairing it, they sent out a brand new unit, a slightly higher specification, because mine had gone out of stock. And thirdly, they threw in a voucher by way of an apology, which felt like a genuine acknowledgement that they dropped the ball.
And piece 6. The close.
But the thing that pleased me most wasn't really the compensation. It was realizing that being calm, specific and persistent, and crucially, getting it in writing, is what actually gets results.
That's the complete answer. Notice what it did. It opened with a one-line summary. It hit every bullet in order. It used numbers instead of adjectives. And it finished on an idea rather than trailing off. Now, the length. 0 words, delivered in 0 minutes 0, which works out at about 0 words per minute. That is brisk, but it is natural for a confident speaker, and it sits comfortably inside the 2-minute limit. And here is the trade-off worth remembering. If you delivered those same 0 words at a careful 145 words a minute, you would overrun by about minus 120 seconds, and the examiner would cut you off mid-sentence. So if you want to speak more slowly, plan to say less. Now part 3. The examiner puts your personal story aside and asks broader questions about society. Answers here are shorter than part 2, roughly 40 to 60 seconds, but they need to be more abstract. You are being asked to think out loud, and a good part 3 answer almost always has the same shape: a direct answer, a reason, an example, and a limitation. Part 3, Question 1. What products or services do people in your country like to complain about? Name categories. Then explain why that category attracts complaints. Listing alone caps you around band 6.
Telecoms, without a shadow of a doubt. Broadband and mobile providers attract more complaints than almost anything else, and I think that's because the service is invisible. You can't inspect it before you buy, so you only discover the problem once you're locked into a contract. Deliveries come a close second, especially since online shopping took off. But what strikes me is that people rarely complain about the product in isolation. They complain about the after-sales care. A faulty toaster is annoying. A faulty toaster plus a helpline that keeps you on hold for 40 minutes is what makes someone furious enough to write a review.
Question 2. Would you buy things in the shops which you have complained about before? Answer the question directly, then refuse the false choice. It depends on X is a band 8 move when you name me X.
Yes, I would. But it depends entirely on how they handle the complaint rather than on the complaint itself. There's a well-known idea in customer service called the service recovery paradox, which suggests that a customer whose problem is fixed generously can end up more loyal than one who never had a problem at all, and that certainly matched my experience with the laptop. I still shop there. What would put me off for good isn't the fault things break, it's defensiveness. If a company argues with me or hides behind policy, I'll take my money elsewhere and I won't go back.
Question 3. Which one is better when making a complaint, by talking or writing? Compare on named criteria, then give your own rule. Examiners reward a position, not a fence sit.
They're good for different things, so I'd say it depends on the stage you're at. Speaking is faster and it lets you convey tone. You can hear whether the other person is actually willing to help. and a bit of warmth often gets you further than aggression. Writing, on the other hand, creates a paper trail. It forces you to be precise. It can't be misremembered, and it's much easier to escalate because you can simply forward the thread to somebody senior. My personal rule is to talk first because it's quicker and to switch to writing the moment I feel I'm being fobbed off. That's exactly what worked for me.
Question 4. Do you think customers' complaints will improve products or services? Add a condition and a catch. Yes, provided that plus a limitation shows genuine reasoning.
They can, but only if the company has a mechanism for feeding them back into design. Otherwise, complaints just get logged and forgotten. When it works, it's essentially free research and development. Your customers are testing the product in conditions no laboratory could replicate and telling you exactly where it fails. The catch, though, is that complaints are a very skewed sample. The overwhelming majority of dissatisfied customers never say a word, they just quietly stop buying. So if a firm only listens to the people who shout, it ends up fixing the loudest problems rather than the most common ones.
And question 5. This one is worded a little unusually on the card, so we've kept it exactly as printed. Are there any disadvantages to setting up customer service? An odd-sounding question is still a normal question. Restate it in your own words, then answer with examples.
From a company's point of view, yes, a few. The obvious one is cost. A proper support team means salaries, training, and systems, and it generates no revenue directly. So it's usually the first department to be squeezed when budgets tighten. The second is that a badly run one is arguably worse than none at all. If you outsource it to the cheapest bidder and the agents can't actually authorize anything, customers leave angrier than they arrived. And the same goes for chatbots. They're efficient on paper, but being trapped in a menu with no way of reaching a human is infuriating. So the disadvantage isn't really having customer service, it's doing it half-heartedly.
Let's collect the language. These are the expressions from the model answers with what they mean and how they were used. Learn them as whole chunks, not as single words. And 6 more, mostly from the Part 3 answers. A word of warning, do not try to force all 12 into one answer. 2 or 3 used naturally will score far higher than a dozen bolted on. So why would this be assessed as Band 9? 4 reasons, 1 for each marking criterion. And again, this is our own judgment against the public descriptors, not a certified examiner score. Here's your challenge. Record yourself answering this exact card for 2 minutes. Give yourself the full planning minute and use the 5-line grid. Then listen back and check one thing only. Did you actually answer the final line, or did you just tell the story and stop? If you found this useful, subscribe to Master 7 to 9 and I'll see you in the next lesson.